Hi, welcome to Everbox Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspection today is Greg Howe's debut album. It was released in 1988. Now, I'm not sure the actual release date. I'm sure it came out in the summer. I actually got it around the September, October of 1988. I was at college, in my first term of college, and I heard the flexi disc, or I heard a track called The Pepper Shake, I believe. My mate at college had just met. He was wasn't sure on the Greg Howe thing, but I liked the sound of it, and I think I'd seen an interview with him in Guitar World. It's actually got Keith Richards on the front cover. It's like a brown sort of cover, and he was featured in that. So my feeling, this came out July, August time, and then I got it a couple of months later. I actually ordered it into my local shop at home. So I was up in Newcastle in the northeast of England, and I couldn't get the album until I was able to go back home and into the shop, so to speak, to get it. But it came in a brown paper bag. I think it's one of the best instrumental albums of its time. Like all Shrapnel releases, it's let down by its production. It's one of the poorer sounding ones, I've got to say that. It's got a really abrasive top end and a really woofy bass. I've had it on my system before, and normally when I'm listening on my sort of Denon proper hi-fi separate system, kind of designed for CDs really, which I do listen to CDs on, normally I have my bass and treble on about six or seven each kind of thing. But I found myself turning both of those down to 4. So it shows you how excessive that is. These frequencies are on it. These Shrapnel albums really need remastering. Like I said before, there is some online remastering of the Cacophony album, Go Off and Speed Me Little Symphony, and the difference is really makes a difference, but it's quite extreme remastering. The people who've done that really got into the frequencies. So that's just a bit about that. So it's recorded at Prairie of Sun Studios. All the Shrapnel albums recorded there. They're always engineered by Steve Fanato. They're always done in really quick time. Generally, these guys get like a week to 10 days, 11 days maybe to mix and master. I know what this is. I've got a little bit of experience with this. I had an instrumental album in 78 hours. That was recording, mixing, mastering as you go. That was a long time ago now. It was 2002. So they're really under the cosh. Obviously, they've got to learn the tracks with the drummer, which is at Manor. And then you've got Billy Sheehan on bass, superb. He plays up a storm on it, of course. So imagine there was rehearsal period, and maybe they're learning songs while they're getting basic sounds down. But I think they used samples for some of the drums, because all of the drums always sound the same on all these albums. I seem to remember Greg Howe just plugging into a Marshall I had at the studio with, I think it might have been a Kramer he had. It's all customised, and he used a tube screamer. But obviously, people who know Greg Howe's work, he's got that kind of smooth, nasally sort of tone, these days, and he's got a great tone. But on this, like I said, is abrasive top end. But that aside, let's look at the tracks. So prior to this, he'd sent in demo to Spotlight column in Guitar Player in '87, and then typical with Mike Varney with these things, he would kind of liaise with the player. They would write on their Fostex 4-track at home, and then when they were ready to go, they would do it in the album. Obviously, he's quite into his fusion, but he touches base with some of the neoclassical things with this. And I suspect that's at the kind of behest of Mike Varney for it to kind of fit in with what's in vogue at the time. His album sold 100,000 copies and is still his best-selling album. That's typical sort of numbers for Shrapnel albums at the time. But it opens with Kick It All Over. So this track was transcribed in Guitar World magazine back in '88, and this is when he first came to the world's attention. This is a great track. It's got a great riff. Where it sets itself apart from other stuff like this, it's kind of groove metal. It's got a loss of syncopation. It's got a bit of a funked up feel. So it fits in with, well, it kind of predates really, not the funk metal thing, but it kind of sounds like kind of Riff Extreme would do, in 1990 and beyond. So he's kind of ahead of the curve with this. If he could have done his band at the right time on a big label, and we'll come up with his band, he would have done better. This illustrates his tapping on his arpeggio. So the transcription in the magazine, he'll tap the top note of the arpeggio, then he'll hammer on to the next note, and then he'll hammer on again with his tapping finger and go down the arpeggios like that. And he also illustrates his hammer on some nowhere technique, which we call fret tapping now. So prior to this, everyone would kind of pick a note to play it, you know, if it was kind of starting off the phrase. But what Greg Howe did was he could just hammer on straight onto the fretboard, hammer on again and tap, and then you get this smooth flowing string skipped tapped arpeggios, and you get these runs, which are a bit like Red Beaches, but the difference with Red Beaches, he would use his ring finger to sound a note, and as he went across the string, this finger, on this, not this your ring fingers, your way ring there, but he would do that, so it would be like picking the note of his ring finger as it moved across the strings, whereas Greg Howe's just hammering on from nothing. So you need like a really good technique to do that. And you need to keep the sound clean. Something I've never really mastered. Michael Romeo does it really well as well with his two-handed tapping. Andy James. So yeah, it's the opening track. It's really good. It's got cool solos, cool arrangement. It's 5 minutes free. It's a little longer for an instrumental track, but it works really well. Next track's the Pepper Shake. This is the first one I heard. 4 minutes 11. Again, this is similar. It's a similar kind of groovy metal. It's a little kind of slower and slinky. So it's got that slow bumba dumba dumba sort of feel. You can hear he gets quite a lot of pinch harmonics on this. There's kind of a bit of George Lynch coming through. Obviously, he's a big Van Halen fan. But I think on this, is it the bridge section? If I might be muddling this with Kick It All Over, so don't quote me. But it's here where he uses the thing where you slide in a fret below into the note you want, and it's kind of a very Larry Carlton, very jazz rock thing. And I think that's something different he was doing at this point. So you're hearing his Larry Carlton influence and to craft these nice melodies, and he's got a way of kind of gliding over the beat and on the offbeat that's pretty unique. If you think about a player like Malmsteen, he's very on the beat. You know, Howe's not like that. He can kind of sit in different pockets. So that's a great track. Then 3 minutes 43, track 3 is Bad Rackets. So this is the up-tempo track. He does some amazing stuff on this, and he does amazing diminished 7-string skipped arpeggios. So what he'll be doing on this, for instance, he's going to play, for instance, fret 11, 14 and 17 on the A string. Then he'll move to 10, 13, 16 on the G in the same pattern on the high E, and you'll get a different way of playing a diminished 7 arpeggio. It's very smooth. I think he's doing them that way. If he didn't do them that way, it certainly inspired people to play them that way with the other way he did arpeggios. And then track 4 is Super Unleaded. I didn't have a clue what Super Unleaded was when living in the UK. We just had petrol. Now you get Super Unleaded in the UK, but it's a better, different fuel mix, obviously. Actually, I never used to like this track, but I was listening to it before, and it's really good. It's a good track. The top end on the sound is really gnarly on this, but it's got some cool kind of beats from At My Nerve, and then you can really hear Billy Sheehan. You know, he's just brilliant. He actually interplays with Howe really well. So although I don't like this track as much, it's still a good 6 out of 7 out of 10 track. And then it finished with Land of Ladies side 1, and this track's 4:25. Apologies, I've just looked at the wrong time. It's 5 minutes 38, Super Unleaded. Apologies there. And 4 minutes 25, Land of Ladies. Again, you've got a nice... Again, more jazz rock sort of phrasing, but with like a hard rock sound. He does some more cool, string skip arpeggios and tapping. He does like a lot of, brilliant runs where he's, tapping up the neck. There's a cool bit where he kind of grabs a kind of pinch harmonic, but it kind of feels like a whammy. It delays, and then he does another run. So bursting down the fretboard. I'm guessing that's probably comped. I think these albums, a lot of these guys are doing these solos in 1-2 takes. They're probably going for it, doing another take, then they're cutting together across the 2 tracks. You did that with Punching In. So I've got track 1 going, and I want... After 10 seconds of track 1, I want the solo coming in from track 2, and there's a button on the desk, and you punch one out and you punch one in, and there's a real art to it. Now you just cut and paste, and you blend, you do that thing with a blend, but back then comping's a real art, so, you might be punching, like from free solos, say, you go 1, 2, you battle 1, then 3, and then if you don't, the engineer has to get it right, and then it all seems seamless. It's not cheating, typically if you're planning a solo, you would do that and then just pick from your best plan. Or if you're improvising, you want to get the best ones, and then maybe the guitarist would learn the solo. So side 2 of the original vinyl, there's 9 tracks on this album, set to 41 minutes and 44 seconds. So it's a typical Shrapnel length. I mean, these albums are actually a little longer than some albums of 9 tracks, with songs. So they're quite long, some of the songs. 3 minutes 58, this is Straight Up. This has got a great riff. Really like the groove on this, really like the melody. It's a cool track, it's gnarly. And then you've got Red Handed. This is really groovy. Again, it's got some cool kind of dominant 7 dyads, as it were. When it comes out of the solo, it does a great deep fret sort of blues lick. Wow, it's a whammy. And he's on a neck pickup, and it just shows like, an extra level he had, a different approach he had in his playing, that's differed from Gilbert or, Friedman, Becker, those guys. Next up's After Hours 3:33. This is cool. This has got a cool kind of groove to it, with kind of delayed sort of harmonised guitars. Really like this track. Then he did some cool pentatonic where he's kind of cascading down the fretboard. I think the solo is not entirely successful. He kind of did 11/8 time, I think. So it's got this kind of like weird beat, kind of going for the fusion thing. That's a really good track, and then it finishes with Little Rose. This is kind of more the ballad track, but it's got an epic melody. Really nice, really tasteful. There's not a bad track on this album. It really is one of the best instrumental albums. I think it'd easily be a 9.5 out of 10. It's just production lets it down. I remember I got a mate of mine, he could just never get away with it because he hated the tone of the guitar, but for me, I could kind of see past that, because Greg Howe's got a good tone. It just wasn't, recorded right. But I've always liked it. It's one of my favourite instrumental albums. And after this, I'll just carry on, because I'll not do a review of this. He did Howe 2 with his brother on vocals. So they had this band prior, in the Philadelphia area, I think, or somewhere in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, I think, prior to this album coming out. This production on this is better. It's still got a bit of a brace of the top end and a too fat bottom end. But Al Howe actually got a quirky voice. He just kind of inhaling a weird kind of inhaling whammy scream, as I call it, a bit like Dead Off. I think this album's cracking. It's well worth checking out. You've got the title track High Gear, which is really good, Carry the Torch. They're both great tracks. This chock-a-block with cool solos. I seem to remember this album's about, the 45-minute mark. But it's integrated into really cool kind of Van Halen party metal. Track 3 was Stradivarius. He shows off his cool arpeggio techniques on this, with his tapping. Really cool. Then track 4 was Disorderly Conduct. Not quite as good as this track, but it's a decent tune. And then side 1 of the original vinyl finished with Thinking of You. They've all got great solos, these. He's playing to really come on. His tone, his phrasing, really good. And then side 2 of the original vinyl, which I had, finished with Standing on Line. Great track. And then there's Ferocious, which is kind of a kind of double bass metal track. Maybe not as good. And then there's Don't Let the Slow Gin Order the Wine. This had a really cool groove on it. Again, getting that deep pocket. Great solo on this. And he plays across the beat and gets into the daka, kind of thing. Party Favours. Not a great track, that, but he trades off with Mike Varney and Jason Becker. And again, Mike Varney plays the best solo. Becker and Howe are out of ideas on this. So like the Richie Kotzen album, Fever Dream, Mike Varney outplays his protege. He's not technically as good a player, but he kind of finds a great groove. And then he finished with Social Future, another cool track, a kind of slow, funky groove. He had a good rhythm section. Joe Novello, Fern Parsons are good players. They did this album after this, Now Hear This, which wasn't quite as good, and then it finished. Obviously didn't get a major deal, which a band like this would lead, but when you consider how successful Extreme were, a band like Howe 2 with the right deal could have tapped into that Extreme Halen market. But I think it's easy. How mark out of 10 for this album? Probably an 8 out of 10. It's not as consistent as his debut album, but it benefits from having vocals and good songs. It's more the thing I'd rather listen to. I really like the cover with the gear stick there. You got a gear stick on the guitar. So like, yeah, on on the thumbnail on this, you might see like the artwork for this just behind. So it's just a kind of secondary review. But yeah, Greg Howe's debut album, 35 years old today. Well, not today, sorry, sometime around this point. Really great example of the Shrapnel Shred era. One of the best of its kind, and well worth checking out. And check out How to High Gear if you're interested to look at that. So remember to share and subscribe. Thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you again soon.